Franchising offers the promise of a proven path to success. The idea of franchising is tempting, either as a buyer or as a business owner, but is it the right move for your entrepreneurial journey?
How'd you like to do more than put a little food on the table?
What'd you have in mind?
You've just walked into your favorite coffee shop, the one with a familiar logo and the consistent service that feels like a comforting ritual no matter where you are in the country. This isn't just any coffee shop. It's part of a massive franchise that spans thousands of locations worldwide. But behind the brand success is a complex decision that countless entrepreneurs face. Should you invest in a franchise, or should you consider turning your successful business into one? Take 7-Eleven. It's the world's largest convenience store with over 70,000 locations globally. Wow. But did you know that it started as a small local ice house in Dallas, Texas? It wasn't until years later that the business transformed into a franchise model, which allowed it to scale exponentially. The decision to franchise was a pivotal moment that took a local business and turned it into a global powerhouse. Today, we'll be discussing to franchise or not to franchise. That is the question. Should you buy into a franchise model? And if so, who is it right for? Or should you consider franchising your own business to expand its reach? We're joined by Kelly Amshoff, a franchise consultant and business expert, to help us unpack these questions, all that, and more on today's How to Founder. Good morning, I'm Chris Franks.
And I'm Anthony Franco. How to Founder is where you, the founder, discover tips, tricks, and details that MBA professors refuse to teach you. And I screwed this up. I was supposed to bring Kelly on as like a big ta-da, and I just had her on screen. So Kelly, sorry about that. I messed up my job. I had one job and I failed at it.
One job. That's okay.
Kelly,
so we'll lean out and they'll go like, ta-da! She's here. Hi, everyone.
Well done.
We don't have to do his ass.
So Kelly is a franchise consultant and a fitness expert, so she has two jobs. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Hi, guys.
Kelly, before we get started, what do you think about our technical competence? I mean, pretty top tier, right?
Through the roof. I mean, it's been
pretty outstanding. Right? Yeah, I mean, I know.
Absolutely.
We've blown you away.
It's been very impressive so far, yeah.
Kelly, thanks for joining us. Just tell us your backstory. Where did you come from? How did you get into this business?
Awesome. Thanks. So I know that Anthony recently said franchising and fitness. So my brand is I'm with Kelly. It started as fitness I've been in fitness, God, I don't even know how many years. I don't want to go that far, but teaching for a long time. I worked at all different kinds of boutiques, ran some clubs downtown Chicago, opened my own fitness studio and my own brick and mortar brand in 2019. That then switched to virtual during the pandemic. So I've been a small business owner for a long time. I know the upheavals of being everything, the marketing, the talent acquisition, all of it, and getting everything started from ground up. And I've also been on the franchising side of things where you kind of streamline a lot of those processes and you can jump the gun a little bit. So I work as a franchise consultant alongside a portfolio called FranChoice. We can talk a little bit more about that a little bit later, but I basically help aspiring entrepreneurs to figure out if it's good for them or not. Franchising is not the right path for everyone. So my job as a matchmaker is to kind of see, is this a good journey for you? And then which businesses do we think are going to be the best fit for you? So,
first of all, I love FranChoice. That's just a great name. We love a pun here.
Oh, yes.
On How to Founder.
FranChoice is amazing. They are, yes.
So let's just dive into it. What type of person is this going to work better for versus the traditional path of heading down the road of starting your own company, doing your own thing, et cetera? Because I've heard a lot of stuff. There's people that I know that have started franchises have been very, very happy doing it.
Yes.
And some have said, oh, it sucks. It's terrible. And I think it does come down a lot to that, like what you're expecting out of a business. So let's just start there.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You can also find that with just small business owners. There are some small business owners that just are amazing and some that aren't. So I think it's a lot of, like you said, what are the expectations and how are you set up for it? So what I kind of break it down to, underneath the umbrella of being an entrepreneur, there's a creative entrepreneur and there's an executor. And it's kind of, when I meet with people, I've got to figure out which one are you, because the creative entrepreneur is the one that's got all the big ideas and wants to make all of the decisions, and they want their brand and their name and a lot of the, and that's great. A lot of people do really, really well making their own thing. They don't tend to make the best franchisees, because franchisees need to be able to follow a system and they need to be able to go underneath a name. Like you guys mentioned 7-Eleven. That's not Chris's brand, but you got to be able to like promote that brand awareness. So when you're an executor, you are someone that follows a process, can follow a system, wants to get to point A to B in the most successful way possible. Can you have some creative freedom in a franchise? Sure. But you are literally handed like a blueprint, like an operations manual that says, here's what you need to do to be successful. So people that like to make their own decisions and call all the shots don't tend to make good franchisees. So it's kind of figuring out, would you be better as your own just small business owner, or are you good at following a system and, like I mentioned, A to B as efficient as possible?
Well, Anthony is very structured, very rigorous, very operational focused. Low creativity, though. I'm just kidding. Anthony, like we've rebranded 6 times in like 6 weeks. So yeah, the idea of like operating under somebody else's name. I now know why we're not a franchise, Anthony. We would we have to come up with our own name.
You could be your franchisor at some point. So franchisors are the ones that own the brand. Franchisees are obviously the people in the brand working and executing. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of different angles that you can take this industry.
Yeah, I was listening to your explanation of what a franchisee needs to be, and I'm like, yeah, that's Chris. That's neither one of us.
Yeah, no, there's no chance. That's also one of the reasons why it's never appealed to me. But I think it is important to have the conversation, because I think there's 3 pathways to entrepreneurship. I think franchise is one of them. I think acquiring another business is one of them too. And then tend to come from is this concept of starting from the ground up. But to your point, Kelly, it's hard.
It is very hard
to do. Right.
The other thing is too, is your risk is so much higher. So for people that are a little bit more risk averse, but they're like, gosh, I've always wanted to own something myself, I really want to do this. You're taking away a lot of that risk, because A, again, you're being handed a blueprint. B, you've got an entire network of nationwide or global franchisees alongside of you that you can call at any moment and be like, I'm struggling with this. How did you handle this? And you also have a leadership team that's invested in your success. A lot of candidates are like, oh, I don't know, I think this franchisor is like out to get me. And I'm like, they're really not. They have to document your financials. That has to go into the disclosure documents. So they want you to be successful. So they're going to do whatever they can to get you up and running. So for people like you guys that are very creative and want to call the shots, absolutely be a small business owner, be an entrepreneur. For people that are like, I really want to invest my money and have passive income, or I want to start creating my own exit strategy in the next 2 to 5 years from corporate America, but I want to mitigate the risk. Franchising is a great place to start exploring. One other thing too is a lot of people look at franchising for the exit strategy. If I go and bundle up I'm with Kelly Fitness and sell it, that's fine. But it's not going to go as high as a price point as if I bundled up like a Dunkin' Donuts brand or a 7-Eleven, because that's a nationwide brand. So the multipliers are often a lot higher when you're looking at selling a portfolio of franchises, because it comes with the brand name, it comes with the franchisees around you, it comes with the operations manual. It's a lot easier of a transition. So there are definite benefits to both sides.
That's really interesting. It makes me wish that I could be a franchisee. I'm just too broke. Like both Chris and I are just too broken, right? We are too ego driven to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to follow somebody. Well, I mean, speaking personally, I have too much of a problem with authority to go buy into somebody that.
Yeah,
it's going to tell me what to do.
Great thing to. You're self-aware, though. I mean, that's half the battle. Half the battle.
I think the word is narcissistic. I'm not sure anyway, but that's what I would say.
Never been called that. Right. No, I've never been called
that. Never. Brand new.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Kelly, as I'm starting to consider this decision, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm somebody that's considering maybe multiple pathways into entrepreneurship. What are the factors that I should consider by going down this path? Because you mentioned it's not free typically. Typically, you have to buy into a franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some
Absolutely.
capital outlay. Not that there's not capital outlay in everything else you do. But so what are the factors that I should start thinking about when an entrepreneur comes to you? What is sort of the roadmap that you take them through?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So there's a couple different answers here too. So when I start talking to someone initially, like on a Q&A, because oftentimes people will find me and they're like, I just have some questions. And I'm like, sure. Because as a consultant, my services are free. Think of it almost like a real estate agent where you can go and see a million different showings and it doesn't charge you anything. So kind of like an executive headhunter / recruiter, right? So when
Right.
I
So
start
if you
talking
bring
with,
somebody in,
yeah,
the franchisor will pay you for bringing somebody in.
exactly.
Got it.
Because they don't want to have to staff their own internal recruitment department. So they would rather work with vetted consultants that know exactly what they're looking for. Every franchise within FranChoice's portfolio, we have a portfolio of about somewhere between 200 and 250 brands. Each one of those brands or concepts has a different type of franchisee that they're looking for. Some have different leadership skills, some have different marketing skills, some are out in the community, some are behind in strategic thinkers. So we know as the consultants what they're looking for. So when we're talking with our candidates, we're like, okay, this would match your skill set. It's our job to put them where they're going to succeed or to help introduce them to where they're going to succeed. So when I'm talking with the candidate and we're just going through that initial Q&A, yes, you are correct. You do have to have some kind of capital investment. Not to talk numbers or anything like that, because there's always financing.
Yeah, but give me a range.
Too.
Is it like 1,000?
Yeah.
Is it 1,000,000? Is it 10 million? Like
I
what's the
would say
ballpark?
if you have a liquid injection available around $50,000, we can make something work and there's some kind of franchise concept for you. Most people will say a range, like you said, like I've got between 50 and 150,000 that I'm willing to put in as a cash injection or to an SBA loan. SBAs often look for a down payment type of a situation. There's also a rollover if people are like, I really want control over my 401k. I want to use that and then I'll reimburse myself from the business expense. So there's lots of options. And the tax benefits, we could spend an entire hour on the tax benefits of being a business owner, as I'm sure you guys know.
Well, also,
once we
Liquid
yeah.
Injection is going to be the name of our indie band. That's a terrific indie band name. Hey,
Absolutely.
And I'm going to be
love
lead
that.
singer. I'm claiming it right now. I'm lead singer.
I will be
Anthony. We'll
front
put
row
Anthony on the
for
drums.
show.
We'll put him
I
in the
love
back
it.
of the thing.
I play the kazoo.
Yeah.
That's what an investment. Yes, I love it, you guys. I'll be there at your first show.
All
I'll
right.
be a groupie of Liquid Injection.
Well, Kelly, you're the guitar and bass and keyboards and everything else because we don't actually have any
There we go.
skills. We just
I'll be there right on the stage with you then. We'll lead this all the way through. I love it.
Sounds great.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. We'll get t-shirts. It'll be a brand.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
That's
So
what
once
else
you
could go
have
wrong?
the liquid injection, exactly. What I look for is like, why do you want this? Like, if you and I were having a Q&A, I'd be like, well, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? And I'd have to actually hear it because some people just want an easy way out, right? They don't actually want to do the work. So I got to vet out like, why do you really want to do this? Then it's like, what skills do you have? And then it's like, can you follow a process? Do you want to do this? So there's lots of things that go into it. We'll go into an entire franchise consultation. Those are about an hour and a half. And I ask all of your background. What are things about your past jobs that you've loved? What are things about your past jobs that you've hated? Because I want to stay away from those, right? But what type of staff do you want to have? Big staff, small staff, white collar, blue collar, men, female? Like, I want to get down to like, what is your ideal perfect situation? There's no perfect business, but we can try to get close to it. And the thing you really want to get people away from, because everybody's like, I really want something that I'm passionate about. I have to do something that I'm passionate about. And it's like, well, do you? Or are you very passionate about like money? So we try to go
Or
back
lifestyle,
between,
right?
it's between money or time. Like if we can get passion to be the very bottom, I'll give you an example. There was a female candidate I was talking to, and she was like, I love bike riding. I love bike riding so much. I want to do bike riding all the time. I want to own a bicycle franchise. And I'm like, all right, well, let's rank it passion, money, and time. And she was very much like, oh, passion's number one. I was like, okay, great. I find you a bicycle franchise and you love it so much, but you make zero money and you're spending all your time there. Do you still love it so much? She's like, oh, well, no. I'm like, So passion's not at the top.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
So the thing is like, I think that we've got to figure out, do you want more time in your day? Like, are you working 80 hours a week at Meta and you want more time? Or do you want more money in your lifestyle so that you can go and bike ride or golf or do whatever it is? Because let's be honest, gutters aren't sexy. Painting isn't really sexy. Like home restoration, disaster restoration, but those are really lucrative businesses. So what is the passion that you want to get to so that you can have the lifestyle that you want. So those are the kind of things that we try to decipher in. And then I introduce them to the brands, a handful of them that I think will be interesting based off of what they've said. And really, I'm just there as a coach for the rest of the way. I'm not selling anything. I'll be there to bounce ideas off of them when they get the FDD or when they go through different processes as kind of a guide. But they go and they do that investigative research all on their own. So, yeah.
What's an FDD? Is that like the
Oh,
agreement?
great question. Yes. Well, there's a franchise agreement, and then there's an FDD, which stands for Franchise Disclosure Documents. So it's 23 items, and it basically mirrors the franchise agreement, because when you become a franchisee, you sign the agreement, right? So the FDD kind of helps explain it by breaking it into 23 different items. Like number one is, who is the franchisor? What's their business background? Is there any litigation? Has there ever been bankruptcy? They go through all the fees. Item 19 is always your financial representation. So you can see what the other franchisees in the system are doing. So the FDD gets disclosed to candidates probably around the second or the third call, and then they start combing through those. They're big documents. So, yeah.
So I'm curious. So we've kind of gone through who I need to be, right? What do I need to be looking for outside of, what I could be good at, right? So obviously you need to be good at what you decide you're going to be doing. You can't hate the job.
Yeah.
You have to at least enjoy it. And to your point, maybe not passionate about it, but you have to at least enjoy it. But what are the things, like what are some red flags I should be looking for when looking at opportunities to franchise? Like how do I qualify whether or not this is a good business to buy into?
Yeah. Well, you'll start seeing it very quickly. So let's do you guys as if you were two different candidates. So Anthony, you come to me and you tell me that you are a risk taker and you want something that is brand new and fresh in the industry and that nobody's got it. I would probably show you a couple of what's called emerging brands that are brand new to the system. But the thing with emerging brands is there's a bigger risk there because you don't have years and years of financial track records to look through. There are certain people that are okay with that for the benefit of being first to market. Now, Chris, if you're with me and you're like, I am an engineer, I like to sit behind a computer and crunch numbers, I have to see at least 10 years.
All of that's true.
All of it, yes.
Yeah.
He's an engineer and then a lead singer in liquid injection on the side. He lives a double life.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yes. But there are some people that are going to need to see that financial, like run the numbers. And there are others that are willing to take bigger risks. So that's one thing. So you want to kind of feel out what are people's risk aversions here. And then you want to also, when you get into what's called validation, that's a part of the process where you go and you are introduced to other owners in the system. You can be on group calls with them. You can do one-on-one calls with them, and you're going to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So Anthony, let's say you call one of the owners that's in Texas and you're like, all right, walk me through your everyday. And they start telling you things that you might not have learned yet in the process where they're like, oh, it's a grind, man. You're out there and you're doing this. And you're like, well, I thought it was this. You've got to validate everything that the franchisor is telling you and that you're learning in the FDD. And a lot of times what people see as red flags are, I just can't see myself doing that every day. I thought that I really want to do that, but now that I'm talking to owners, I don't know. But then on the flip side, you could get into validation and sometimes your least favorite concept, because you usually are between a few. They could be like, oh no, I scaled so much faster than what the timeline was. And I did this and the support is crazy. And those are things you want to listen for too. How much support is the franchisor giving you? I'm sure you all know the term royalties. You do have to pay a royalty to be in a franchise. It's part of your brand's name to use. It's part of the support systems. But you want to know, what is that paying for? How much are you going to help me with marketing? Is there a call center? Are you doing part of my lead generation? So there's lots of things you want to get to the bottom of. I give at the very beginning of the process a 20-question document of at some point before you buy a franchise or buy into it, you need all 20 of these questions answered. And a lot of those are, what's the training? What's the timeline? How quickly am I going to ramp? What kind of support am I going to receive? What are the other owners saying? So there's lots of things you want to look at along the way, and everybody has different red flags. Somebody's red flag could be a non-negotiable for you or not even an issue. So, but those are things when you get back from a phone call or you get back from talking to an owner, you'll be like, okay, I didn't really love this. What does this mean? I'm like, oh, well, pretty common. Or I'd be like, that's a huge red flag. We need to dig in there and possibly let this concept go because it's not for everybody.
So as I'm considering making this leap, and I start with this concept of, hey, I think this may be right for me. I don't want to do something I hate. Tell me about the
Mm.
landscape today. What's going on in the world of franchise? For a long time, I know that
Yeah.
Subway franchises were like printing money. Like, what's
Yeah.
just the sort of landscape that I'm walking into? Is there a particular vertical or area that's really hot? Not.
Yeah. That's great. So yes, so you're right. We don't do a lot of food and beverage. We have some, but there are a lot of issues with food and beverage. Sometimes you have to buy X amount, like 7 Subways to even get started, right? Or the margins can be a little bit smaller. The staff turnover is very high. You have theft, you have all this kind of thing. So we work more with, there's tons of different industries. I'll name a few. There's pets and animals is a big one. Senior care is a big one. You can get into an assisted living franchise, child education, youth sports, home renovation, real estate, disaster restoration, like smoke, fire. There's tons of different types of it. Personal care and beauty and exercise fitness. Those are big ones as well. But when
I think
we talk about
that's for Anthony and I, personal care and beauty, because
absolutely, you guys, look at you. You're a walking.
I don't just roll out of bed looking like this, Kelly.
Takes work. Yeah.
This is a routine. That's a complete.
I find myself
actually
unusually stunned into silence on this podcast episode.
I mean, I think it's taken me. It's taken me quite a long time to make you speechless.
I'm literally like I'm a total loss. I'm sitting here going, I have nothing to add to this.
no
No, you're adding so much. You're adding so much. You're keeping us grounded.
All right. So within this
But
world,
within those,
again,
yes.
yeah.
Within those industries, you've got 3 categories. So to answer your first question, like when you're saying like, what are the different types? So when I explain it to people, I'm like, okay, there's owner operator. Let's say, Anthony, you absolutely hated your job. You're working for corporate America and you hated it. And you're like, I am ready to put in my 2 weeks notice, but I need something. Owner operator would be great. You're going to be hands-on. You're giving 40 plus hours a week. You're getting it running. Those are often lower investment ranges because you're putting in that sweat equity, and it could be home-based or vehicle-based. You're not often looking at brick and mortar. So you don't even have to get a lease, right? You can run it from home. Then in the second tier, you have what's called an executive model. This is for people, let's say, Chris, you're like, you know what? I'm fine. I can deal with this job for another 5 years, but I kind of want to start building something on the side as an exit strategy for the next 2 to 5 years. I'd be like, well, an executive model is like 20 hours a week. You're working more heads on the business, but you're managing a key employee. So it's a little bit of a bigger investment range because you've got that salary of like a GM or somebody, but you're not giving it 40 hours a week. You're still running your full-time job, but maybe at the end of it, you'll have a couple of these locations open and you can step away from corporate and have income coming through, right? Those are sometimes home-based or brick and mortar. But then you've got a third category that's called investor model. And this is for somebody that has a high price ticket, but doesn't really want to touch this. It's like 5 to 10 hours a week. For an example, think a laundromat. It's a huge real estate play. You're going to put in a big investment range there, but then it kind of self-runs and you just kind of have something on the side bringing in, I don't want to call passive income because you're still an owner, you're still operating it, but it's much less of a time commitment for you. So we got to figure out like A, where is someone's financial appetite, but also B, what is the time frame or the time commitment that they can give to the franchise? And then layering on top of it, you got to see, do you just want one? Or do you want to get into like an empire builder where you're doing like maybe 3 or 5, and then you're getting bigger ROI return because you're having multiple revenue streams come through.
So it strikes me.
I did the investor model once with the in the laundromat. You reminded me of it. In the laundromat, you know, they have those change machines where you put $1 in and get a quarter out. But I couldn't figure it out. But every month I was just like, I broke even.
Interesting. Really? Tell me that this is. Are you joking, Anthony? I get it. Took me 1 longer than usual. 1 second longer.
Sorry.
Chris, I don't know that he's ready. He's like, I gotta get a joke in here somehow. That was his chance.
I was such a dad joke too. Sorry about that.
Kelly, Kelly, congratulations. You're now my co-host on How to Founder.
You can't fire me. You can't fire me. We have an operating agreement.
I don't even work here. That's what makes it so hard. Okay, so
it was very well received, Anthony.
I'm gonna sum up where we've been to this point, and then I'm gonna ask a couple more questions on those decision points. And so, really, what I've heard is that it is a pathway to entrepreneurship, maybe not a typical from the founder from the ground up. It's somebody that is probably a little bit more risk averse. It's more of an operator than a big kind of visionary thinker. And this last piece where we said it's really, you have to ask yourself a lot of tough questions and really define what it is that you want to see in the next phase of your life. If you really want to go 40, 60 hours a week, that's one model. And then you can kind of go backwards from there, but it tends to be a sliding scale of investment. The less time that you spend there, the more you're going to. So great. I'm sitting there. I'm looking at.
Can I ask one quick question on that piece, Chris?
Sure, please.
Can you bootstrap into a franchise?
As in
other words,
a franchisee or?
As a franchisee. In other words, let's say I don't want to put any money in. Can I do that? Is there franchises that will take franchisees that are entirely sweat equity?
I don't work with any that do that really. The thing that you would probably have to do is find a silent or an angel investor. You could have somebody where you're like, listen, if you put in the capital and then don't touch it, I'll be your sweat equity and I'll get in there. That's all. We have business partnerships that come through all the time. But as far as just going to the franchisor and being like, I can't pay you the royalties, I can't pay you the tech fee, I can't pay for the marketing, I can't pay for the operations or the training, but I'm here. No, you probably just need to go find a job. You know?
Right, because that's like the business model there is that's how the franchisor makes money, right? They make money by you coming in.
Well, also Kelly has to get paid. Like somehow Kelly has to get paid too. So Kelly doesn't get any benefit from a sweat equity franchise.
That's probably true.
I just don't think really exists. But yeah, I would just be like, a lot of times it's like, listen, you can go find an investor, you can go find a partner, or come back and like you. I have candidates that I talk to, and then it's not the right timing is everything. And then 3 years later, they contact me and they're like, hey, I'm in a much better financial space and I'm ready to make the moves. I'm like, great, let's go. So everybody's on their own time schedule. But to what you said earlier, Chris, of like, it's for a specific risk averse type of entrepreneur. That's a yes, but also it's for an entrepreneur that wants to get to profitability as soon as possible. It's for somebody that doesn't want to take the time to build the logo. I don't want to go and build the website. I don't want to go and do this. I want to streamline. I want to jump in. I want from day one to day here to know like I'm going and I want to be profitable. So it's for very hungry entrepreneurs. It's for people that want to bypass a lot of the stuff that they don't care about. Not everybody cares about that creative side. And that's where we kind of go back to the beginning of like, are you creative or do you want to execute? And just
what is this thing you're saying? It's a word. I think I've heard profitability. What is I don't even know what that means.
I was wondering too. Yeah, I was wondering.
Some entrepreneurs actually reach this point in their journey that's called profitable.
Weird.
Some don't. I know.
Right.
It kind of means you have some income coming through.
Was it Amazon? Like Amazon not profitable like 10 years after IPO?
They really have low margins. I mean, Bezos doesn't make much, but yeah, they kind of flirt with profitability.
All right, so you and I were working out in the gym, and I sit next to you, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Hey, I may
first Kelly gives you the like, leave me alone, creeper.
Leave me alone, exactly.
Right. I got that down. Yeah.
Also, Kelly, I'm a 6-time Ironman. I've done endurance athletics.
Congratulations.
But well, now I'm a sweater, man. Like the moment I go out in the jog, I just start pouring.
So I'll just pull my cowl up and put it between us. Like, all right, let's keep your stuff over here and we'll talk about the cowl.
So after you get over your sweat aversion and I say, hey, I'm starting to consider this as a pathway very, very early.
Yeah.
What would you recommend? What are the steps that you'd recommend that I go through to even consider this as an option?
Totally. Yeah, and it happens all the time. I talk to people like this all the time. So basically what I'll ask first and foremost, I'm like, well, why? What's got you thinking about it? And I really want to hear your
Because I fucking hate my job.
Oh, that's perfect. That's plenty of pain. So you got a pain point there. Let's work with that. So what I would say is I'd be like, listen, I would love to talk to you about this. Know that anytime you talk with me, there's no hidden fees to you. So let's schedule 15 minutes. I just want to get to know you. I want to kind of hear, what is your pain with your current job? Like, what's so awful about it? Like, really? And then where do you want to go? Like, what would franchise ownership mean to you? So it's really just diving in and getting to know one another. And there's so many times when I get to meet people and I'm like, you're amazing. You have all the skill sets. I just don't think you have enough pain to do it. I think you're really comfortable. And why not be comfortable? You know? So, and sometimes people just can't find that why, because it's a risk. You guys know this. To be an entrepreneur, you take a big risk and you've got to consistently remind yourself why you're doing it. So it's just kind of vetting out. But the first step to answer in a much smaller stance would be, let's schedule some time together. Let's schedule 15 minutes. Or if somebody's like, I really want to jump into a consultation, great. Let's jump into a consultation, because then I build you a business strategy. based on all the things you've told me. And I hand that to you and I say, hey, this is where we're going to start. I want you to redline this. Tell me if everything on here makes sense. Like, these are the hours you want to work. This is where you want to work from. This is the staff you want. Here's where you want to be in 5 years, those kind of things. And then we take that strategy and I introduce you to companies. Now, you could come back after your first couple rounds of calls and be like, oh, I was wrong. I don't want to work from a small warehouse. I don't want to have any kind of, I've been looking at leases. We tweak the strategy, we make a new one, and we look at something different. So it's really just kind of fitting on. You got to have a lot of patience. It takes a lot of time, but it's for the people that really want to dive into that. And I just help you shop around. That's my job.
So give me an example of when it's gone really well, and give me an example of just an utter, absolute dumpster fire of a failure.
Okay. Are we talking during the investigation or once somebody?
I'm kind of thinking after the fact, because, it's like, if you're during the investigation, that's still a win if you decide, hey, I don't want to do this, right?
Oh, yeah, total win. I would so much rather somebody say no than get placed and do a horrible job. Because those franchise companies are also like, they expect me to be a vetting process too, So absolutely, I'd so much rather somebody not do it than do it poorly. I have franchisees that have placed in certain brands that are doing exceptionally well, and they call me a couple of years later and we stay in touch and stuff, and they're like, I just can't imagine going back to corporate America. I'm able to go on vacations now. I actually went to my kids' soccer practice and I didn't have to be checking my phone and stuff because I'm owning my time. And now sometimes they'll come back, and the best is when they want to add more locations. Let's say you started with 2 and then 2 years later, you're like, you know what? I'm ready to do 3 more. I want to make this a little bit bigger. Those are wonderful success stories because you can see they followed the process. They're communicating well with their franchisor, and they're profitable and they're successful and they're happy. Like, they've reached the lifestyle that corporate America could never have given them, which makes me exceptionally happy. Now, when you talk about dumpster fires, there's been like 1 or 2 cases where I thought I knew somebody really well during the process, and then they sign and then they just sit on it and they do nothing. And for some reason, somewhere down the line, they had the expectation that because they bought into a franchise, the franchise was going to run itself. You still have work to do. It's still a lot of work. So it's like they just sit on it and then nothing happens. And then either they default or they sell it and they get out, which is always possible. But you want to make sure that you're vetting people, that it's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it for the right reasons.
Well, so somebody spends $100,000 in a franchise and then plays Xbox waiting for the money to roll in.
That's a dumpster fire. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good work if you can get it, I guess.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Let's make it work. You do have to get in there. So you're not just buying a job, you're buying a company to run. So
I'm really curious now, like to switch gears here. So let's say I'm a business owner, right? I've started my own really cool brand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this should be a franchise.
Yeah.
Tell me why I'm wrong. Like, tell me why I shouldn't be thinking that.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, as a consultant, I can introduce you to the people. So what it's called is there are called FSOs, or franchise service organizations. And what they generally do is they have a portfolio of brands. And so they might have some healthcare, they might have exercise, they might do all home renovation. It just depends. But let's say they've got like 10 brands underneath them. They help develop those brands. They have like the sales machine. They have directors that meet with candidates. They vet out. They also help you build your FDD. They have a litigation department. They have lawyers and attorneys and things like that. So what you would be considered, Anthony, is an emerging brand. Now, you only have probably 1 or maybe a handful of corporate offices. So we would need to get the financials of those so that we could disclose those for respective candidates to see, right? And then we'd have to put together, what does your operations manual look like? How are we going to get your training together? So I would probably introduce you to an FSO or a parent company that could help you go into like an incubation phase of taking you from 1 or 2 corporate locations, streamlining you into a franchise option. And then you kind of meet with consultants like myself, and we go to conventions twice a year, and you would stand up kind of like on Shark Tank, and you would tell us, this is why you should show my brand to your candidates. This is why my concept is so wonderful, and we're going to give them this, and we're going to support them this way. And we're looking for the mayor of the town that can network really well and can give 25 hours a week. So when we as consultants go to these conventions, we hear from all 200 brands, of why they're wonderful and who they're looking for. And we take notes, and then we go back to our candidates and we say, okay, this one I think is a good fit. So there's lots of ways to get you there. But then the reason why you would want to franchise, like you said, is you're going to grow exponentially. You're going to go from one location to 100 locations in X amount of time. And you've got the support of that parent company or that FSO helping you along the way.
It's kind of a different way to scale, right? Like you can think about it as like I could scale myself, or I could help have other people help fund my scale.
But Chris, the thing is too, is if you're off running that business, how much time do you really have to vet out candidates? How much time do you really have to go through that whole process of, are you a good person? Are you not a good person? Do you understand the risk? Like the thing that franchising helps you do is it keeps everybody in their lane. Chris, you get to go and be the founder. Go and strategically make this brand as strong as possible. Anthony, you're on the support team and you're on the training team. You're going to build this out. Then you get a consultant and they help bring in this. So it kind of keeps everybody in their lane of what they're doing well, so that instead of being a small business owner, like what I'm with Kelly, I have to do everything, right? Franchising, it's everybody's got their role and we all work together to make this grow as fast as possible.
What are some of the attributes my company needs to have in order to be even considered as a franchisor?
Yeah, you need to be able to show some financials for sure. You've got to be able to show the last several years so that we can see that it's profitable, so we can actually show people.
Kelly, I was going to say, how do you feel about the color red, Kelly?
I feel anything.
So it's not like I need to develop a forward-looking pro forma, because I can do that in a half a day. You need historical positive financials. Oh, okay. All right.
Here's where I am. This is where it's going.
This is what we think it's going to do. The other thing is you need to have a story. People buy into stories, right? So I've worked with a lot of brands before where people fell in love with the founders. They loved that the founders were very engaged. They loved that the founders really cared about it, that they were going to be right there with them. There are a lot of companies where you don't ever even really meet the founder, like you're not really touching them. So if you have a story, if you have the history and the financials to show, and then if you have like that forward thinking of, here's how we're going to train them, here's what we're going to do, and these are the support systems. Franchises are all about support. Like if somebody's coming in and paying you a royalty, what are you putting that towards? What are you doing to help them grow?
So likable founders, Anthony, we're out. Like
that's an X right there.
Yeah, that's
financials.
No chance,
There's your X. Yeah. So maybe you can show support. Right. You're one of three.
All right. Really interesting conversation. I've learned a ton today about franchisors and ease and all those sorts of things. I'm going to kind of take us back to this point. We've learned a little bit about what type of person should consider this path. We learned a little bit about what you should, the factors that you take people through to decide what type of business they want to go in, what type of time, really making sure that you're committed to the model. Playing Xbox and not doing anything, probably not your best pathway to profitability. What else have we forgotten along this path? Is there any other pieces of advice that you would say as somebody that's considering this as a potential founder?
The only thing I would say is it takes 15 minutes to schedule time with me and ask questions. And there's no harm in that. I always tell people that are looking at starting the process, I'm like, worst case scenario, if you end up not buying a franchise, you got a free crash course in franchising 101, and like we've mentioned, maybe 2 years later, you're going to find out that it is time for you and ready for that. So my big thing is that if you are someone that's listening to this or someone that hears of this, and you've always wanted to be a business owner, you didn't know where to start, or you always wanted to invest income so that you could have passive income, it's an interesting route to investigate, and know that you're not doing it alone. Now, can you find a franchise on your own? 100%. You can go onto Google right now and go to jimmyjohns.com and go to franchise locations. But the point of that is you're going to go through it a little blind, and you're not going to have someone like myself or other consultants that are like, this is an issue, or like, ooh, I would really dig into that. They glossed over that answer for you. Like, we're here with you as a free resource to help make sure that you're going into it eyes wide open. So my thing is it doesn't hurt to learn more. Be a student, be a lifelong learner, and contact either myself or a franchise consultant that and just ask questions and see if this is right for you, because our job is to tell you yes or no. It's my job to be like, don't think this is a good idea for you, but what's the harm in that of just figuring it out? So be curious, be always wanting to learn more, and just ask questions.
So really good opportunity. I think the piece that I've taken away from this, Kelly, is that there is a type of founder that this offers a really unique opportunity, which is, to your point, that doesn't want to be the person who figures out the website, who doesn't want to create, the brand from scratch 6 different times, Anthony. It doesn't want to do all this sort of early creative work around the company, but really just wants to go in and operate a company on a model that's been proven.
Yes, it's the proven model.
Yeah, and also Anthony and I are out because if you have to have likable founders if you want to be a franchisor. So
we can work on it.
One of us
can work on it.
One of us picked the wrong co-founder.
We'll leave it at that.
Really interesting conversation. Anthony, thank you for joining us. Kelly and I will be with you next week. I'm just
Okay.
I'm kidding. So I've got a few deep dive recommendations that you can wrap us up, Anthony. eMyth Revisited, always a great one. Franchise Your Business, the guide to employing the greatest growth strategy ever. The Franchise MBA. Oh, that's by Mark Seibert. The Franchise MBA, Mastering the 4 Essential Steps to Owning a Franchise by Nick Neonakis. The Franchisee Handbook, Everything You Need to Know About Buying a Franchise by Mark Seibert. And Franchising and Licensing, 2 Powerful Ways to Grow Your Business in Any Economy by Andrew Sherman. Anthony, take us out, man.
So next week, we will be talking about, or not next week, sorry, Thursday. I always do that. This Thursday, the next episode of How to Founder, we're going to be talking about founder burnout and stress. So join us then. Kelly, I would love to know where can our listeners connect with you to learn more? And I should say, we're in the process of revamping our website. We're going to put Kelly on our website as a resource for How to Founder listeners. But where can they come in and check you out?
Yeah, absolutely. So LinkedIn is just my name, Kelly Amshoff, and you can find me there and connect. Or my website is I'm with Kelly. So it's IMWITHKELLY. I'm with Kelly franchising.com. And on the website and on my LinkedIn, there are Calendly links to schedule onto my calendar for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever works. So those would be the 2 best. And schedule some time. It'll put you right onto my calendar and there's nothing to lose. So, yeah.
Kelly, thank you for joining us. I think it's like one of the fun parts about this is that Anthony and I typically come in with preconceived notions. And I'm like, franchise. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not my thing. And I get it. I understand. Just like there's ways for people that want to buy businesses, it's a pathway to entrepreneurship. This is another pathway to entrepreneurship for a particular type of person that I think does fit a particular type of person. I think the only real dumpster fire that I've ever heard of is when somebody actually fucking hates doing the job that they do. But that's why you talk to you.
That's why they talk to us.
Right. Yeah,
Exactly. So no, and the whole preconceived notions idea, 100%, it goes back to kind of like thinking you want the bike shop, like my job is to break down all those preconceived notions, be like, okay, let's lead you to where we want to go. So absolutely. Thank you guys so much too for having me on here. It was super fun. I'm really excited to add co-hosts to my resume. I'm going to go update my
There we go. Right on LinkedIn today. Yeah, that's incredible.
I will say it was very nice for once to have an expert on the podcast, somebody that knows what they're talking about. Yeah, I'm sure. We
had one of 3. There was one of us on here.
All right. As a reminder for everybody else listening, remember to follow us on linkedin.com/company/howtofounder or on our YouTube channel @howtofounder. And follow us on LinkedIn right now because we're posting a whole lot of great Denver Startup Week events that we're going to be a part of. Kelly, again, can't tell you thank you enough for being a part of the show. Chris, I will talk to you. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Thanks a lot. Take care.